Dadperfectrevenge. My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. I heard her say it's time for him to go to a nursing home. He's a burden. I didn't say anything, but at that moment something in me broke. I sold the house for $890,000. They came back from their business trip smiling, but there was a surprise waiting for them. The keys didn't fit the door. They found a note on the doorstep, and after reading it, they started screaming. And then I realized they wouldn't just leave it alone. This was just the beginning. My name is Carl Bennett, I'm 58 years old, and this is how I discovered my own daughter was planning to steal my life. The phone rang just as I was scraping the last of the meatloaf from my plate. Beverly's meatloaf recipe, though mine never tasted quite right without her touch. The kitchen still smelled faintly of the garlic and onions I'd sautéed earlier, mixing with the lingering scent of Beverly's lavender sachets she'd tucked in every drawer. I glanced at the caller ID and smiled despite myself. "Dad, how are you holding up?" Linda's voice carried that familiar warmth that always made my chest tighten with love and loneliness. I settled into Beverly's old recliner in the living room, the leather worn smooth from years of her evening reading sessions. The burgundy fabric had faded where the afternoon sun hit it through the bay window I'd built with my own hands. Oh, you know me, sweetheart. Just finished dinner and was about to watch the news. I didn't mention it was leftovers from 3 days ago, or that I'd been staring at Beverly's photo on the mantel for the better part of an hour. The silver frame caught the lamplight, making her smile seem almost alive. "Are you eating enough? You know you can always order groceries online now, right? I showed you the app." The concern in her voice sounded genuine. It always did. "I'm eating plenty." I interrupted gently, though I had a little scare yesterday. Forgot to turn off the burner under my coffee pot. Good thing I smelled it burning from the living room. There was a pause. I could picture her in some hotel room in Phoenix, frowning in that way she'd inherited from her mother. The same little crease between her eyebrows when she was worried about something. "Dad, maybe we should talk about getting someone to check on you more regularly." "Gary thinks I'm fine, Linda." "Really? How's your business trip going? You're in Phoenix, right?" "Yes, the conference ends tomorrow." Gary's been handling most of the client meetings while I sit through these endless presentations about digital marketing trends. She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Listen, Dad, I should probably get going. Gary and I have dinner plans with some potential investors. Of course, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Dad. Take care of yourself, okay?" I heard a click, then rustling sounds. She must have dropped the phone in her purse, I thought, reaching to hang up my end. But then I heard voices muffled but clear enough through her phone's microphone. The sound quality was tinny, like listening through a wall, but every word cut through me like glass. "Gary, you see how he's deteriorating?" Linda's voice, no longer warm and caring, the fake sweetness had evaporated completely. "He forgot to turn off the stove yesterday. What if he burns the house down?" My hand froze on the receiver. Ice spread through my chest, creeping down my arms until my fingers went numb. This couldn't be happening. Not Linda, not my little girl. "It's time for a nursing home, Linda." Gary's voice, cold and matter-of-fact. "He's becoming a burden, and you know it. Your dad's a good man, but he can't live alone anymore. A burden." The word hit me like a physical blow. The house is worth almost $900,000 now. Linda's tone had shifted to pure calculation. The voice of someone discussing a stock portfolio with Denver's market. "We could probably get $890,000, maybe more." Exactly. Gary sounded pleased, like he'd just solved a difficult math problem. "We could sell it, put him somewhere decent, not too expensive, and finally buy that house in Boulder we've been looking at, the one with the mountain view." My daughter laughed, actually laughed. "God, Gary, you should have seen him tonight. So grateful just to hear from me. He has no idea we're planning this. The longer we wait, the more confused he'll get. We should strike while he still trusts us completely." The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor Beverly and I had installed together 23 years ago. Every board laid by my own hands, every nail driven with thoughts of our family's future. The sound echoed through the empty house like a gunshot. I sat in the sudden silence, staring at Beverly's photograph on the end table. Her eyes seemed to bore into mine with an expression I couldn't quite read. Disappointment? Warning? Or maybe just the terrible knowledge that comes to those who've already left this world. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked steadily in the growing darkness. Beverly's 15th anniversary gift to me, its brass pendulum catching the light from the street lamp outside. Outside, the first spring crickets began their evening song in the garden Beverly had planted, and I still tended every morning. Her roses were just starting to bud, the way she'd taught them to climb the trellis I'd built against the garage wall. Something cold and hard settled in my chest, replacing the warmth I'd felt hearing my daughter's voice just moments before. My hands, weathered from decades of construction work, slowly curled into fists. They thought I was a burden. They thought I was confused, helpless, ready to be managed and discarded. They were already spending my money, already planning their new life built on my grave. But I wasn't dead yet, and I wasn't nearly as confused as they believed. I don't know how long I sat there in the dark, Beverly's face watching me from the silver frame. The house felt different now, as if the walls themselves had heard my daughter's betrayal and were holding their breath. Every familiar creak and settle seemed louder, more ominous. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. The old furnace kicked on in the basement, sending warm air through the vents I'd installed myself back in 2003. When I finally stood to turn on the lamp, my legs felt steadier than they had in months. The warm light fell across the living room we'd furnished piece by piece, each item chosen with care and saved for with sacrifice. The burgundy sofa where Linda used to curl up doing homework, her textbook spread across the cushions while Beverly helped her with algebra at the coffee table I'd built in the garage. I remembered sanding that table smooth on weekend mornings while Linda played at my feet, handing me screws and washers like a tiny construction assistant. "Can I help, Daddy?" she'd ask, and I'd give her a small hammer to tap nails that were already flush, just to make her feel important. Now she wanted to hammer nails into my coffin. I walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer where I kept old receipts and papers. My fingers found the folder I was looking for without conscious thought. 25 years of financial records I'd never thrown away because Beverly always said, "You never know when you might need them." The manila folder was thick with memories I'd forgotten, each receipt a reminder of what I'd sacrificed for my family. University of Colorado tuition receipts, $48,000 over 4 years. I remembered those double shifts, coming home with concrete dust in my hair and plaster under my fingernails. The overtime pay that went straight to Linda's education fund while Beverly and I ate beans and rice for dinner. Beverly would have coffee waiting when I got home from those long days, and would massage my shoulders while I paid bills at this very kitchen table. The same table where we'd celebrated Linda's acceptance letter to college, where we'd planned her graduation party, where Beverly had cried tears of pride watching our daughter walk across that stage. "Carl, you're working yourself to death," Beverly had said one night, watching me calculate how to afford Linda's spring semester tuition. The numbers never seemed to add up, no matter how many times I ran them. "She deserves better than we had, Beverly. She's smart enough for anything." Beverly had kissed the top of my head, her lips soft against my hair. "Just don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful." I should have listened. God, I should have listened. The wedding receipts were there too, yellow with age but still legible, $32,000 for one day. I told Linda we could afford $5,000, maybe $8,000 if we stretched the budget and borrowed against my retirement fund. But she'd cried in this very kitchen, actual tears streaming down her face about wanting her dream wedding. "All my friends are having beautiful ceremonies, Daddy. I don't want to look back on my wedding day with regret." So I'd worked weekends for 6 months, installing hardwood floors for a contractor friend who paid me under the table. Cash in hand, no taxes, money that went straight to wedding vendors. My back ached for months afterward, but Linda's smile in her wedding dress made every painful morning worth it. "Daddy, you're the best father in the world," she'd whispered during our dance, her head on my shoulder, the expensive lace of her dress rustling against my rented tuxedo. I'll never forget this. Never. But she had forgotten. Just like she'd forgotten who co-signed her first car loan when her credit score wasn't good enough at 22. Just like she'd forgotten who made the phone calls to get her that marketing job when she was unemployed for 8 months after graduation, calling in favors with contractors who knew people in the business world. I found the bank statements from 2 years ago, after Gary lost his financial advisor position for what they vaguely called improper client relationship management. They'd moved back in with me temporarily, just until Gary found something new. I'd cleared out my home office to make room for their belongings, sleeping on the couch for 3 weeks until we could rearrange the furniture. I'd never charged them rent. Never asked for grocery money when my monthly food bill tripled. Never complained when Gary left the TV on all night, or when Linda used my washer and dryer like her personal laundromat. I'd paid the increased utility bills without a word, bought groceries for 3 adults instead of one lonely widower who barely ate anyway. Gary would pat my shoulder and call me the most generous man in Colorado, his voice warm with what I'd believed was genuine affection. Linda would hug me and say, "Dad, we'll pay you back when we get on our feet. You know, we're good for it." They'd been on their feet for over a year now. Gary had found work as a sales associate at a downtown financial firm. Linda had gotten promoted to senior marketing coordinator, both of them making more money than I'd ever seen in my best years as a construction engineer, but they'd never mentioned moving out. Never brought up paying me back for the thousands I'd spent supporting them. Now I understood why. They'd been planning this all along, standing in the bedroom where Beverly had spent her last days, surrounded by everything we'd built together. I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp as broken glass in my chest, but underneath it something harder was forming, something cold and methodical that felt familiar from my engineering days when I had to solve problems that seemed impossible. They wanted to put me away and sell my life's work. They thought I was too old, too confused, too grateful for their attention to fight back. I looked at Beverly's photo on the nightstand, remembering her voice from all those years ago. Her warning about giving Linda too much, about not letting her forget to be grateful. Well, Beverly, our daughter, had definitely forgotten. But she was about to remember that her old man wasn't as helpless as she thought. I walked to my home office and pulled out the business card I'd kept in my desk drawer for 3 years. Eugene Walsh, real estate attorney. The card was slightly bent at one corner, worn from being handled during those uncertain months after Beverly's diagnosis when we'd tried to get our affairs in order. Beverly had insisted we meet with him after her cancer diagnosis, just to make sure everything was legal and proper. "Carl, I need to know you'll be protected," she'd said from her hospital bed, her voice weak but determined. "Promise me you'll be smart about money when I'm gone." It was time for another consultation. The next morning, I called Eugene's office from the kitchen phone, the same rotary model Beverly and I had bought in 1987. It still worked perfectly, unlike most things they made these days. The receptionist, a young woman with a pleasant voice, put me through immediately when I mentioned Beverly's name. "Carl, how are you holding up?" Eugene's voice carried genuine warmth. I remembered liking him during our previous meetings, the way he'd explained complicated legal terms in plain English, never talking down to us. "I need to discuss selling my house quickly, Eugene." Very quickly. There was a pause. I could hear papers shuffling on his end. "How quickly are we talking, Carl?" "My daughter and her husband are returning from Phoenix in 6 days. I want this done before they get back." Another pause, longer this time. "That's aggressive, but possible with the right buyer. This sounds urgent. Can you come in this afternoon?" 2 hours later, I sat across from Eugene in his modest office on the second floor of a brick building on Colfax Avenue. The same office where Beverly and I had signed our wills, where we'd planned for a future that didn't include her. The walls were lined with law books and family photos, a wife, 2 teenagers, a golden retriever, the kind of normal life Beverly and I had tried to build. Eugene poured coffee from a small machine in the corner, the rich smell filling the space between legal documents and filing cabinets. He was younger than me by maybe 15 years, with graying temples and the patient demeanor of a man who'd heard every family horror story twice. "Tell me what's going on, Carl." I explained everything. The phone call, the overheard conversation, their plans to sell my house and put me in a nursing home. Eugene's expression never changed, but I caught him shaking his head slightly when I described their eagerness to spend my money on their Boulder dream house. "Unfortunately, Carl, this scenario is more common than you'd think," he said when I finished. "Adult children often assume they know what's best for their aging parents, especially when valuable assets are involved." He leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled. "But let me be clear about something. They can't actually do anything, legally speaking. Can they? The house is titled in your name only since Beverly's passing. Correct? That's right. Beverly and I owned it jointly, but when she died, it transferred to me automatically. Then, legally speaking, your daughter and son-in-law have absolutely no claim to your property. They cannot sell it, cannot force you into a care facility, cannot make any decisions about your assets without your explicit consent." Eugene pulled a legal pad from his drawer and began making notes. "The house belongs to you, period." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by something sharper. "So if I wanted to sell it myself, you could put it on the market tomorrow if you chose to. It's your property, your decision." Eugene looked up from his notes. "May I ask why you're considering that option?" I thought about Linda's laugh when she'd called me a burden, about Gary's cold calculation of my worth, about 25 years of sacrifice reduced to a real estate transaction. My hands clenched around the coffee cup. They think I'm helpless, confused. They think they can manage me like a piece of property. The words came out harder than I'd intended. Maybe it's time I showed them exactly how sharp my mind really is. Eugene was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "Denver's housing market is incredibly strong right now, especially in your neighborhood. Properties are selling within days, often for cash offers above asking price." He paused, pen hovering over his legal pad. "If you were serious about selling quickly, before your daughter and son-in-law return from their trip, how quickly could it happen? With the right buyer, and there are plenty of investors looking for properties like yours, we could have a sale completed within a week, maybe less." Eugene leaned forward. "But Carl, this is a major decision. Once you sell, there's no going back." I looked around his office, at the family photos on his desk, at the law books lining the walls. Outside his window, Denver stretched toward the mountains Beverly had loved so much. Somewhere in this city, my daughter was planning my future without me. "I built that house with my own hands, Mr. Walsh. Every board, every nail, every custom detail. I set down my coffee cup with steady hands. I know exactly what I'm doing. We spent the next hour discussing practicalities, market value estimates, cash buyer networks, legal requirements. Eugene explained that with Denver's hot market, he could have everything prepared within 24 hours if I was serious about proceeding. The consultation fee is $200, Eugene said, as I prepared to leave. If you decide to move forward, that applies toward my legal fees for the sale. I paid in cash from my wallet, money I'd withdrawn that morning from the savings account Linda and Gary thought they already owned. The bills felt crisp and new in my fingers. Walking to my truck in the spring sunshine, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. Linda's name appeared on the screen, and for the first time since her betrayal, I smiled. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I could picture her in some hotel lobby in Phoenix, probably checking her watch, wondering why her grateful old father wasn't jumping to answer her call. Let her wonder. Let her and Gary make their plans about my future, my house, my life. They were in for the surprise of their lives. I let it ring 4 times before answering, my voice warm and grandfatherly. "Hi, sweetheart. Dad, there you are. I was starting to worry when you didn't answer earlier." "Sorry, Linda. I was out running some errands. How's Phoenix treating you?" "Oh, you know how these business conferences are. But listen, I have wonderful news. Gary and I have been planning something very special for you." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles going white. "Oh, we want to treat you to a vacation. You deserve some rest and relaxation after everything you've been through since Mom died." Her voice carried that practiced sympathy I now recognized as manipulation. "There's this beautiful place we found. It's like a resort, but with medical staff on hand just in case you need anything." A resort with medical staff. I walked to the bay window I'd built for Beverly, looking out at the garden she'd planted. The roses were budding, the way she'd trained them to climb the trellis against the garage wall. "That sounds lovely, sweetheart. You really didn't need to go to such trouble for me." "Nonsense, you're family." Gary's voice came through the background, probably listening on speakerphone. "We've already made all the arrangements. When were you thinking?" "Well, we should be back by Friday. We were hoping you could be ready by then. Just pack some clothes and personal items, you know, the essentials. The essentials. Not the photo albums Beverly had lovingly arranged. Not the furniture I'd built with my own hands, just the essentials for an old man being shuffled off to die. Actually, Linda, I have a surprise for you too when you get back." "Oh, Dad, what kind of surprise?" She sounded genuinely pleased, probably imagining I'd signed papers or made their job easier somehow. "It's something I've been working on since our last conversation. I think you'll be very surprised. You're so sweet, Dad. We'll talk about everything when we get home, get some rest, and we'll take care of everything else. Sweet." She called me sweet while planning to steal my life. "I love you, sweetheart. Love you too, Dad. See you Friday." The line went dead, and I set the phone down with hands steadier than they'd been in weeks. That afternoon, I contacted Ralph Turner, Denver's top real estate agent, known for quick sales and cash transactions. His office was in a gleaming high-rise downtown, all glass and steel efficiency. Within 24 hours, Ralph had 3 serious cash buyers interested. 2 were investors looking for rental properties, and 1 was a young family who'd been priced out of other neighborhoods. I liked the family story, reminded me of Beverly and me starting out, but I went with the highest bidder. By Wednesday, I'd accepted an offer for $890,000 cash. By Thursday, all paperwork was signed at the title company, a sterile office that smelled of fresh coffee and legal documents. The notary, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, walked me through each signature with the thoroughness that made me feel confident in my decision. Friday morning, I packed a single suitcase and drove to Sunset Manor Apartments, where I'd rented a furnished 1-bedroom under a 6-month lease. The building was modern but comfortable, designed for seniors with a community center and well-maintained grounds. Mrs. Carol Jenkins, the property manager, had been accommodating when I'd explained I needed immediate occupancy. "Cash deposit is perfectly fine, Mr. Bennett. When would you like to move in today?" I'd paid 6 months in advance, nearly $9,000 that would have seemed impossible to spend casually just 2 weeks ago. Before leaving my house for the last time, I called Eddie's 24-hour locksmith. "I need all my door locks changed today. It's urgent." Eddie arrived within 2 hours in a van full of tools and hardware, a man in his 50s who'd clearly seen every kind of lock emergency Denver had to offer. "Security issue, sir?" he asked, studying my front door. "New ownership situation? Better safe than sorry." He nodded like he'd heard it before and got to work. I watched him remove the locks I'd installed 15 years ago. The brass hardware Beverly had picked out because it matched our door knocker. "These are quality locks," Eddie commented as he worked. "Somebody knew what they were doing when they installed them." That was me. I like things done right. The new keys felt foreign in my palm, silver instead of brass, modern instead of traditional. They clicked differently when Eddie tested them, sharper and more mechanical than the old ones. I set up a small wireless camera by the front door, hidden inside what looked like a phone charger. The device was smaller than a deck of cards but could stream crystal clear video directly to my smartphone. The app was surprisingly intuitive for someone my age. Finally, I taped an envelope to the inside of the front door at eye level where they couldn't possibly miss it. The note was written in my careful engineer's handwriting, the penmanship Beverly had always admired. Dear Linda and Gary, if you're reading this, it means my plan worked perfectly. I heard your phone conversation about putting me in a nursing home because I'm becoming a burden. I heard you calculating how much money you'd make selling my house. The house has been sold for $890,000 cash. The money is safely in my new bank account where it will stay. I've moved to a place where I'm appreciated, not tolerated. Your belongings have been packed and are being stored at Denver Moving and Storage on Colfax Avenue. You have 30 days to claim them before storage fees begin. I gave you everything I had for 32 years. You repaid me by planning to warehouse me so you could steal my life's work. I hope the lesson was worth the cost. Love, Dad. I locked the house with my new keys one final time and drove to my apartment. At 5:15 p.m., my phone buzzed with motion detection. A black SUV, Gary's car, pulled into the driveway of my former house. My heart hammered as I watched the screen. Linda stepped out first, stretching after the long drive from Phoenix. Gary emerged from the driver's side, pulling their suitcases from the back. They moved with the casual confidence of people coming home to claim their inheritance. I watched them approach the front door, Linda fishing her keys from her purse while Gary set the luggage down. She inserted her key into the lock I'd had changed just yesterday. The key didn't turn. Linda frowned, examining her key ring like it had betrayed her. She tried again, jiggling the key with growing frustration. That's weird. My key's not working. Gary stepped closer, his expression shifting from tired to concerned. Let me try the back door. I watched him disappear around the side of the house while Linda continued struggling with the front lock. Her business suit wrinkled from travel. When Gary returned 3 minutes later, his face had darkened with alarm. Back door's locked too, and the garage remote isn't working. His voice carried the edge of panic I'd hoped to hear. Linda, someone changed these locks. What? That's impossible. Dad doesn't even know any locksmiths. Gary studied the front door more carefully, his financial advisor's mind finally recognizing trouble when he saw it. These are brand new locks. This isn't an accident. Linda pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. I'm calling Dad. She tried my old landline, the number I'd disconnected 3 days ago. After several rings, her face crumpled with confusion. No answer. It's not even going to voicemail. Try his cell phone. He doesn't have a cell phone, remember? We talked about getting him one for emergencies. Gary was examining windows now, his earlier confidence completely evaporated there. That one's unlocked. I can boost you up. I watched my daughter climb through the kitchen window I'd deliberately left unlatched, her business suit catching on the frame. She disappeared inside, and moments later, the front door opened from within. Gary entered with their suitcases, and both of them stopped dead when they saw the white envelope taped to the door at eye level. Linda's hand trembled as she pulled down the envelope with her name and Gary's written in my careful script. I leaned forward in my apartment chair, phone clutched in both hands. As she tore open the seal, her eyes moved across my words, Gary reading over her shoulder. I watched their faces change from confusion to shock, to disbelief to horror. He sold the house. Linda's voice rose to a near shriek. How could he do this to us? Gary snatched the note from her hands, reading it again as if the words might change. That manipulative old bastard. He was playing us the whole time. 890,000. Linda was crying now, her carefully applied makeup streaking down her cheeks. He kept it all. That money was supposed to be our future. Your future? Gary snapped, his mask of devoted son-in-law finally slipping. This is your father, Linda. You should have handled this better, my fault. You're the one who said he was becoming a burden. They were fighting in my living room about being homeless, just as they'd planned to make me homeless in their nursing home. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. I turned off the camera feed. I'd seen enough. Walking to my small kitchen, I opened the bottle of Beverly's favorite wine I'd saved from the house. A 2018 Bordeaux we'd been saving for a special occasion that never came. I poured myself a glass and raised it toward Beverly's photo, already positioned on my new nightstand. To you, my love, justice served. The wine tasted like victory. They'd learned what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. 6 months later, I was settled into my new life at Sunset Manor. I'd made friends with other residents, joined the weekly poker game, even started dating a lovely widow named Helen, who appreciated a man who could fix things around her apartment. Linda had tried calling a few times, but I'd changed my number. For the first time since Beverly's death, I felt completely free. I was no longer anyone's burden. I was my own man again, with my own money, my own choices, and my own future stretching ahead like an open road. Carl Bennett had left the building, and he was never coming back. Sometimes the people who call you a burden are the ones who've been living off your generosity for years, and the moment you stop carrying them, they finally understand who the real burden was. Family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect and love freely given. When that respect is gone, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set them free to face the consequences of their choices.